Oral questions by members.
Leader of the Official Opposition.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Earlier this year, a document embarrassed this government, revealing how more than 22 million doses of so-called safe supply was handed out for unsupervised consumption. The document also revealed that this taxpayer-funded drug supply was finding its ways into the hand of organized crime and being sold both domestically and internationally. The Premier and his government, out of embarrassment, announced a change to the safe supply scandal, saying it would now become supervised consumption. The NDP Health Minister responded saying, and I quote, "These medications will be taken under supervision of a healthcare worker, and that includes hydromorphine," end quote. Can the Premier confirm that the Minister's statement is true and that no so-called safe supply is being provided without a healthcare worker supervision?
Mr. Premier.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker. The member, first of all, the documents were a presentation by government to police officers asking for their assistance in investigation and prosecution of pharmacies engaged in diversion of drugs. It's a very serious issue, and I'm very glad that in April the College of Pharmacists acted against 4 registrants at 2 pharmacies for doing this, and I hope that the criminal investigations conclude quickly and result in prosecutions of people involved. We have moved to directing witnessed ingestion. That is, that someone has to watch while you take the prescribed medication. This is a process. The member will know. It comes from rural communities across this province. Not everywhere is downtown Vancouver. And so in some circumstances, in order to ensure safety for individuals, there's a transition period to witness dosing taking place with physicians. But without exception, everybody that is on prescribed alternatives will be in a witness program by the direction of the government.
Member Supplemental.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Well, I find that response interesting, in particular because out of the more than 5,000 addicts who had been receiving on this program, my understanding now is that they are still receiving the so-called safe supply without the requirement of supervised consumption. Now, this being the case, based on the numbers, that would mean that there's probably somewhere in the vicinity of 2 million doses or more that have made their way through non-supervised consumption into the streets and possibly into the hands of organized crime. So can the Premier confirm how many millions of doses of the so-called safe supply will potentially flow into the hands of organized crime before he gets serious about making sure that none of this safe supply will be handed out without supervision?
Mr. Premier.
The member is not correct on multiple fronts. There are 1,918 people receiving prescribed alternatives in the province. The vast majority of these individuals are already on witnessed programs as a result of the direction of government. In extraordinary circumstances, there are individuals who are transitioning to witnessed prescriptions. This involves finding a pharmacy where they're able to get to ensure that it's witnessed. Not everywhere has an immediately available pharmacy. Cutting someone off of these medications immediately can result in very serious adverse health effects or can result in somebody turning to crime. And so the goal here is to transition everybody to witnessed. That is well underway, and it's only in extraordinary circumstances where it hasn't happened.
Member for Abbotsford South.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. 9 years after this Premier was first elected as MLA, Mr. Speaker, days before he became the Premier, he said the following when referring to the problems on the downtown east side, and I quote, "I've never seen the downtown east side in a more desperate state. I've never seen it worse. I worked down there 20 years ago for a number of years, and I thought it was pretty desperate. We're headed in the wrong direction in that neighborhood," end quote. Mr. Speaker, considering the Premier's own words, and given the hiring of Michael Bryant, it is crystal clear that the entire reason for the Premier getting into politics has been an abject failure. According to the Premier's own words, things have only gotten worse. Mr. Speaker, my question, how is this anything other than a dismal failure of the sole reason the Premier got involved in politics?
Mr. Premier.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker. We have opened hundreds of units of housing in the downtown east side and closed the encampment at Crab Park and on Hastings Street in partnership with the City of Vancouver. We are headed in a different direction in the downtown east side. But that's not to say that there aren't serious issues. This is a neighborhood that has been, like many low-income neighborhoods across North America, hit by synthetic opioids and a new group of people living with brain injury, serious addiction to synthetic opioids, and serious mental health issues. We are in the process of opening beds across the province to support this population. The closure of Riverview, moving people from that mental health facility to the downtown east side. And there are still workers in the downtown east side that remember that were involved in moving people from Riverview to the downtown east side. Created a group of people who are profoundly vulnerable, who now, with synthetic opioids, are sicker than ever, and it is awful. And our government is committed to doing all we can to address that issue. And we make no apologies for doing all we can to improve things for the life of the people who are struggling in the streets, but also for the broader community in Vancouver and the whole province that wants this addressed, Honourable Speaker.
Member supplemental.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Well, here's some facts. Between the time that this Premier was first elected as an MLA and became the Premier, unregulated drug deaths in Vancouver rose 650%. 650%. For a Premier who says the issues facing the downtown east side are the only reason he got into politics, that is an absolutely shameful, pathetic number. Mr. Speaker, if this is success, I'd sure as hell hate to see what failure looks like. We all make mistakes, Mr. Speaker. Why can't this Premier just fess up to everyone and admit he hired Michael Bryant to clean up the single greatest political failure of his life?
Mr. Premier.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker. Yeah, it's hard to know exactly where to begin. You know, we're making good progress in Vancouver. Double-digit decreases in crime in the city of Vancouver as a result of our Repeat Violent Offender program, working closely with the city of Vancouver, closing major encampments, getting people. The member asked a serious question about a serious issue. Closing encampments, addressing street disorder, supporting Chinatown with revitalization. We are turning the corner in the neighborhood, but we have a lot more work to do. There's a group of people that are serviced by nonprofit organizations, by provincial government, by federal government, by municipal government, and by charities, all separately and in an uncoordinated way. My goal is for Michael Bryant to assist us in coordinating to ensure that we're delivering outcomes that we're looking for in terms of improving the quality of life of the people who are struggling, as well as the safety, both perceived and actual, in the downtown east side.
Leader of the third party.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Silesym's LNG is owned by Texas-based Western LNG with investment from Blackstone Incorporated and Apollo Global Management, two Wall Street private equity firms with close ties to President Donald Trump. Blackstone is also the lead investor in the Prince Rupert Gas Transmission Pipeline, PRGT. Blackstone's CEO Steve Schwartzman has been an advisor to Trump since 2016 and donated $39 million to elect Republican candidates in the 2024 U.S. election. The construction project contract for PRGT has been awarded to Bechtel, another globe-spanning American firm with deep ties to the U.S. government. Does the Premier think it's a good idea to hand control of BC's strategic energy resources to Trump's corporate allies?
Minister of Energy.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker. And the Silesym's project is currently under review in environmental assessment, Honourable Speaker. As the member will know, because he hasn't told the entire story there, there's a significant involvement in the project and support for the project by the Nisga'a First Nation. There are differing views amongst First Nations, of course, and there's differing views in the region. But the appropriate way to deal with this important environmental question and economic development question is what we've been doing on LNG projects in BC, which is focused on community benefits, on return to BC, on jobs for British Columbians, on Indigenous issues, and on environment and climate change issues. That result has led to LNG projects that have the lowest emissions in the world, Honourable Speaker. LNG projects that have gone forward under this government, 3, worth $42 billion. It shows that when you put climate and you put economic development and you put support for Indigenous people together, that can result in economic development that works for communities. The same approach will be used with respect to this project.
Member supplemental.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. We've heard this morning that Enbridge will sell a stake in its pipelines to First Nations. And however, PRGT's investors are the very forces that the province is trying to protect British Columbians from. To add insult to injury, the new generation of floating LNG platforms are exclusively built in China or South Korea using steel from those countries. It's unclear how exactly these projects form part of a Team Canada strategy. Given how MAGA and Trump are being invoked on both offense and defense in this House frequently, my question again is to the Minister of Energy and Climate. Are we elbows down for a MAGA-owned pipeline being built in BC?
Minister.
Well, Honourable Speaker, I think what British Columbia needs to do is to build, and that is exactly the direction the Premier has given. I am proud, Honourable Speaker, that we've announced in British Columbia 10 renewable energy projects worth $6 billion, $3 billion in equity. I am very proud of the Haisla First Nation, against very difficult and challenging circumstances, who have achieved extraordinary success in an LNG project, yes, that's under construction, and that will be the lowest emission LNG in the world. We as a province need to become stronger. We have an extraordinary gift from the past in BC Hydro, and we have to build on that gift. And that is exactly what we're doing with an electrification plan that works, that addresses climate change and economic development. And we have to diversify our markets, and we are. If anything, recent days have told us we have to become a stronger, more self-sufficient economy, and we have got to diversify our markets, and we are going to continue to act in this and every matter in support of that, while supporting the fundamental values of this government for reconciliation and to fight climate change.
Member for Kelowna Lake Country.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Reports by investigative journalist Sam Cooper and others suggest that state actors in China are collaborating with transnational organized crime syndicates to use Canadian banks and Vancouver real estate to launder the proceeds of crime. This has resulted in highly inflated BC housing prices and has fueled the production and distribution of fentanyl within BC and far beyond. My question to the Premier himself is this: has he been advised officially or unofficially of any known or suspected state actor influence within his party?
Solicitor General.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Thank you to the member opposite for the question. It's been well established that money laundering and organized crime fuel the toxic drug crisis and violence on our streets in British Columbia. While we're doing that job, which is fighting the toxic drug crisis by building more options for addicts, we're combating criminals who are making and trafficking deadly drugs. We've made the largest investment in policing in our province's history, $230 million to hire 256 more police officers. We are filling vacancies in rural police detachments and hiring additional officers in units like major crime. We've created a new integrated gang homicide team, which is improving intelligence coordination related to gang activities. We will continue to go after organized crime and punish all those who profit from it.
Member supplemental.
With all due respect, the question was for the Premier, and it was reference to foreign influence within his party. The Premier must be aware that the United Front Workforce Department was identified in the Canadian inquiry into election interference as a CCP affiliate that has active influence operations targeting politicians within Canada and also right here in British Columbia. Last year, in a press conference, reports surfaced that Ding Guo, an advisor to the Premier, had attended a meeting with officials of this group. Would the Premier himself please describe his relationship with Mr. Guo and explain why he approved a grant of $20,000 to his organization?
Mr. Premier.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker. The member asks whether I've been advised about Ding Guo or any other individual in our party being the target of foreign interference. Now, I have repeatedly asked the federal government and CSIS for the full authority to be briefed on any concerns related to any issues that I should know about as Premier. It's been a long and frustrating journey. It's required amendments to the CSIS Act federally that were finally made. I'd say that the briefings that I've received since then have been only more frustrating. If I received any information about any member of our party who was facilitating foreign interference, I would immediately remove that individual. If we were having interactions with individuals that CSIS advised me were attempting to promote foreign interference, we would cease any and all contact with those individuals, and we would cooperate with any investigation that was required. Provide that assurance to you and to the entire House. Thank you, Honourable Speaker.
Member for Cariboo-Chilcotin.
Well, thank you, Mr. Speaker. Earlier, we heard about the declining situation facing the downtown east side. But I want to speak a little bit about what's happening in Williams Lake. Just weeks ago, another violent incident. A constituent of mine assaulted in Boitania Park. Violent break-ins at businesses are becoming routine. How many more assaults, how many more break-ins will it take before the Premier finally delivers the support that Williams Lake and the people of Cariboo-Chilcotin urgently deserve?
Minister of Public Safety.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and thank you to the member opposite for the question. British Columbians deserve to feel safe in every community in this province. That's the commitment of this government. Again, we're not only strengthening the police, but we're rebuilding the critical services that were cut under the opposition leader's time in government. The old government cut funding for crime prevention and victim services. We brought it back. They ended the prolific offender management program. We brought it back. It's increased by 40% in its first year. We brought back and we're monitoring 400 people through that program. They cut $300 million from health care. Mental health and addiction services were lost or seriously reduced. We're making record investments in mental health care to keep small problems from becoming big problems, and we're trying to break the cycle of crime.
Order.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Member for Cariboo-Chilcotin supplemental.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. You're darn right residents feel a need to feel safe. They don't, Minister. They are afraid in our own community. Mr. Speaker, crime in Williams Lake has spiraled so far out of control that the mayor and council have been forced to hold an emergency meeting just to try to keep our community safe. The city has been forced to pay $100,000 in extra costs on patrols and porta potties in our parks. Meanwhile, serious criminal acts occur daily. When will this public safety minister stop abandoning our community and finally take real action to restore safety to Williams Lake?
Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and thank you to the member opposite for the question. The crimes that we are seeing across the province are very concerning. Make no mistake about it. We are the government that's providing resources to strengthen targeted police investigations of repeat violent offending to which you refer. Since we've launched the SIGHT program, and I'm making another announcement about the SIGHT program tomorrow, we've helped fund 113 police operations in 33 communities across the province. The member opposite have made promises to do something that would make people less safe. We're intending on making the entire province safer.
Members, all questions and answers through the chair, please. Member for Prince George North Caribou.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Throughout the entire Caribou-Chilcotin, there are few mental health and addiction supports available, and these supports are lacking throughout British Columbia, especially rural British Columbia. What assurance can this Minister of Health give to our constituents in the Caribou who are bombarded by hospital closures and have limited or no access to support? Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Minister of Health.
Thank you so much, Honourable Speaker, and thank you to the member for raising the incredibly important issue of healthcare in rural communities, where every single British Columbian deserves the same access, equitable access to healthcare. And that's why this government has taken so many steps investing in new hospitals and new facilities across British Columbia. Mr. Speaker, new hospitals in Terrace and Fort St. John's, Fort St. James, new and upgraded facilities that are coming in places like Kamloops, Penticton, Trail, Dawson Creek, and Williams Lake. Mr. Speaker, we're going to continue to do this work. We're going to train more doctors. We're going to hire more doctors. We're seeing results already. 1,000 new family physicians here in this province, 900 new internationally trained doctors coming to this province. We are building more treatment beds, more recovery beds. We have added virtual services so that people living in rural communities have access to health care. Mr. Speaker, we are not going to stop until this job is done to make up for what we inherited when we took office in 2017.
Thank you. Member for Skeena.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I think that what the minister is referring to is what she's inherited from the former Minister of Health. In Williams Lake, like much of rural BC, this government is cutting back on mental health and addiction supports rather than investing in more. We've recently learned that the government has made the decision to defund Renner House, their only bed-based recovery resource, cutting it from their already limited and dwindling service set. How can the Minister of Health justify pulling critical support services at the very moment communities like Williams Lake are desperate for more, not less?
Minister.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker, and thank you so much to the member, and I appreciate her constant advocacy for rural communities and for northern communities. Mr. Speaker, that's why this government continues to take steps to increase access to mental health and supports places like Williams Lake and across central and northern BC. Mr. Speaker, that includes adding foundry centres for youth to be able to access health care of all kinds, all under one roof. Mr. Speaker, that's why we continue to add interventions and teams into schools. Mr. Speaker, that's why we're going to continue to add treatment and recovery beds, working with community-based service societies who understand and know their communities. Mr. Speaker, we're going to continue to build up the full continuum of care. Mr. Speaker, as I've spoken about many times in this House, we are building Road to Recovery, a seamless system of mental health and substance use care for people that includes expanding into interior health and into northern health. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Member for Surrey Cloverdale.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker. Recently, the Williams Lake Clean Teams, many of whom are summer students, found various weapons, including box cutters, butcher's knives, switchblades, and even a 23-inch machete during their street cleanups outside a local 7-Eleven. So a serious question for the Solicitor General: does he think kids should have to run the gauntlet through a cache of weapons just to get a Slurpee at their local corner store?
Solicitor General.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and thank you to the member opposite for the question. It's important that we build strong communities, and the member opposite knows it. The member, like I, have spent many years in law enforcement, and the only way to tackle problems like you're talking about are at its root. And we're doing that all across the province. When we speak of boundaries, we're speaking of insulating youth from crime. That's our responsibility. That is the community's responsibility. As we move forward, we are continuing to enhance the services that are available to youth and to the entire community.
Member for Fraser Nicola.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Residents of Williams Lake have formed their own informative social media pages to support each other and to track the amount of crime that is occurring in their community. Resident Kathy Hamlin says, and I quote, we're sick of the mess you've made, referring to this government. You are ruining our town, end quote. What will the Minister of Public Safety do to assure residents that their concerns are being heard and prioritized?
Minister of Public Safety and Solicitor General.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Thank you to the member opposite for the question. In every community across the province, the police build relationships with the community. So the fact that the community of Williams Lake has gotten together to help the police do their job is important. It is important that we all recognize that policing is a community venture. The police can work as well as they work with the community. I encourage the member to liaise with the group that you speak of and monitor the ongoing activity and monitor the activity with the police, because it is important that the police have the tools to do the job. One of the ways that they do it is by forming these liaisons. We endorse it. We will continue to do it.
Member for Kamloops Centre.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. When the Health Minister says they're going to provide the same health access across this province, people in the Lower Mainland should be very concerned, because if you're from Lillooet, if you're from Williams Lake, if you're from 100 Mile, if you're from Clearwater, if you're from Merritt, that means emergency room closures are soon coming to a town near you in the Lower Mainland, Mr. Speaker. That's the same health care access we deal with in the interior. But, Mr. Speaker, the other questions we've been asking about Williams Lake, in particular with crime and safety, it doesn't have to be Williams Lake. It could have been Cranbrook, could be Nelson, could be Terrace, could be Prince George, Nanaimo, Victoria, Kamloops, Kelowna. You name the city, everyone is faced with the same challenges. And time and again, this Solicitor General stands up and says everything is fine, nothing to see here. He talks about prolific offender programs that actually the Premier thought were too heavy-handed back when it was a pilot. It wasn't a permanent program that the previous government had, and the Premier at the time wanted it actually cancelled. So, Mr. Speaker, we will take the Solicitor General's questions today with a bit of grain of salt, because who knows, he might have a different answer an hour from now when the media talks to him. But at the same time, can the Solicitor General please inform this House when these communities can reasonably actually feel safe walking to their corner store, walking down their street, stores can actually feel safe to open up in the morning, instead of the constant drivel we hear that, don't worry, things are better under the NDP, because they're not.
Minister,
thank you, Mr. Speaker. Thank you to the member opposite for the question. Perhaps it's time we looked on the other side of things. For example, despite what you said, crime across the province is going down. For example,
Members, order. Order on both sides. Members, come to order.
that's a good example because crime overall is down 6% and down 18% from 2018. Break-and enters are down 24% in Vancouver.
Members, that's enough. Member for Surrey Cloverdale, member for Kamloops Centre.
And Mr. Speaker, perhaps the member from Kamloops would be more interested in crime in Kamloops, which is down 14%. Break-ins in Kamloops are down 42%.
Minister.
Property crime is down 13% in Kamloops.
Thank you, Minister. Thank you, Minister.
Mr. Speaker, we're making progress all across the province, even in Kamloops.
Thank you.